Well, tomorrow is a nostalgic day for classic rock fans. It marks the anniversary of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. 46 years later, the only surviving member left is paying tribute to the band's legacy with the release of his new album. Welcome to the studio, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Artimus Pyle. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Love having you here. So I have to ask you, obviously 46 years, I cannot imagine the impact, the lasting impact that crash has made on you. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think about it every day. It goes through my mind, and a lot of people have asked questions about it over the years. Everybody that was on that plane probably has a different version of what happened. I was never knocked unconscious. I'm a pilot. My father was killed in an airplane crash. All my friends were killed in airplane crashes. I've been in 3 airplane crashes. So I thought that I had the qualifications to tell the story. And so, you know, for 40 years, I was very sad. Every time it would approach the time of the crash, I would start reliving every single day, all weeks back before the 20th. And I decided 40 years is long enough to be sad. So about 6 years ago, I just said, I'm going to think about the music and the legacy and the good stuff and go forward and stop, you know, being sad, because all the people in all of our lives would want us to be happy. You know, we all live, we all die. It's how you live your life. And I just know that all of my band members, you know, both our backup singers, the girls, and of course the band proper, would want everything to go forward in a positive way. And that's what our new album, Anthems, is about, because Ronnie Van Zant was the genius. He was the visionary. It was his vision. And he is a prolific writer. His songs will probably be heard 1,000 years from now. So what we wanted to do was kind of put a little shine on all the other songs that have been out there that still are like we never had the plane crash. They're still on the radio every day. When we play a show, I sit for 2 hours and hear stories about people burying somebody to Freebird. Their high school dance theme was Simple Man, that Ronnie wrote about his mother and his grandmother, and I knew them. And so the songs are relevant. Right. And because of that relevancy, I thought it'd be really cool with our record company out of Texas, Get Joe Records, and Spinning Plates here in Nashville. You know, one of your people in Nashville, one of the organizations, is helping us get this album off the ground. I'm
going to talk about that, a collaboration with some of the biggest names in country music. But going back to the anniversary, there's a movie that you put out, and I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in what happened in surviving a plane crash. I think, you know, knowing just being involved in a plane crash, I think that's what nightmares are made of. 26 people on that plane, 6 perished. Of course, Ronnie Van Zant. You were able to get up out of that plane, and the movie covers that. You were able to leave the crash and literally go to a farm and get help. And I don't think people would even believe the idea that you would come up against a farmer who's protecting his property, pulls a gun on you, and you're bleeding from this plane crash.
Shoots me. Shoots
you in the shoulder.
And right here. And I was in shock from the plane crash. And all I could think, my Marine Corps training kicked in, and all I wanted to do was get to help and get help back to the crash site. Before I left the crash site, I did some triage that I learned in the Marines. Tourniquet, what have you, but I knew that help was the only thing. So when I got to the farmhouse, I was stumbling because I, you know, had injuries from the impact and rolling over a barbed wire fence, and I was all cut up. And you know, it's not funny, but here I am covered in blood. I look like Charles Manson, you know. Right. I'm coming up, you know, and this guy was only protecting his family. He had a gun. I saw it. I heard it. He said, stop. I kind of stumbled forward another couple of steps, and I heard the gunshot. He said it was a ricochet. I don't care what it was. Something went through here, spun me around. I said, plane crash, with what I thought was my last breath. because I wanted to get help back to that crash site because people were bleeding.
Yeah.
And every drop of blood, every second was a drop of blood closer to death. And I you know, and I yelled that, and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And, you know, he was only protecting his family. And he was a young 19-year-old
And you wound
farmer.
up keeping in touch with him, didn't you? After that
For
incident?
years.
Yeah.
We would talk every once in a while, and he was a good guy.
Yeah.
And
You understood his fear of seeing, and he's yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he was protecting his family, and so I have no problems there with him protecting his family. It's just, you know, the crash site. He put me in his truck and took me back to the crash site. I kept pointing, and he'd follow my pointing. We went through a ditch, up a bank, through a field, and behind us was a couple of hundred rescue workers, because a little known fact is about a week before we crashed, there was a civil defense drill, and the whole county, you know, they brought out all their emergency vehicles. And when we crashed, everybody in the county, the farmers and everybody that could hear, they thought it was a train wreck.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't know where it was. And there I am. So I led them back to where I came out of the woods, out of the swamp, the Blackwater. And I started going back in with them, and two police officers grabbed me. They didn't grab me, they took me. And they said, "Sir, you know, you got to go to the hospital." And I argued with them. I said, "I got to show them where it is." And they had asked me, "How far is it?" And I said, "If you throw a baseball from home plate to center field, you'll be right on top of them."
Still hard, even after all these years. Yeah, just brutal. I want people to be able to go see this movie that you did. You wanted to tell the real story of how everything that happened, really ultimately a tribute to the genius that is Ronnie. Of
Ronnie and his band. You know, Gary and Alan and Leon and Billy, they were childhood friends. You know, Ronnie was the visionary. He wrote those songs. But, you know, they were his band. And then Bob Burns was the original drummer. And he was great. He played great with the band, but he had some medical issues. So it was important for them to continue because they were really starting to hit it. So they brought me in, and I thought it was temporary, and I thought Bob would be coming back. And Bob is actually in my modern day band now. We've been together 15 years, but Bob was killed in a car wreck about 5-6 years ago. And he was a unique guy, and he played great on those first two albums. And I did the best I could to fill the shoes. I'm a live drummer. Yeah. Bob was, you know, he pretty good in the studio. And then Al Cooper, of course, was the producer of that. But yeah, you know, I think about it every day. And this movie is that we did. We released it during pandemic. It's hard to release a movie and a soundtrack during regular, not pandemic. Right. And so we got passed over a little bit, but we got some People's Choice Awards. But my band that played on anthems, our basic track, Brad Durden, Jerry Lida, Scott Rains, and Dave Fowler, and myself, we did all the basic tracks, and Dolly Parton sang Freebird.
She sings Freebird, is amazing.
You know,
I'm going to have you come back. I know this album is coming out February 2nd. Will you come back into the studio, talk more about this music, about this project?
February 2nd, Groundhog's Day.
Groundhog's Day. We're going to look forward to that.
It's coming out, yeah.
Some of the biggest names, as you mentioned, Dolly Parton, Billy Ray Cyrus, Chris Janson, Lee Brice. The list goes on and on. A pleasure having you here. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you for letting us talk about our new record. We're very, I love the name.
Anthems.
You know, Ronnie wrote hit songs and hit albums, but these are anthems because I hear the stories every time we play live.
Unbelievable.
So
thank you. Artimus Pyle, a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, man.